Now, in order to double check your objects, the distance, angle, etc., you can enlist the help of two commands. One is the list command and one is the distance command. And if you select an object and perform the list command, so if I click on an object and I type in LI for list, what pops up is essentially a window telling you the properties of your object. So length is 4 foot 1 1/8. Angle in the XY plane is 243, so you can start to kind of double check the properties of the lines. Now, this is going to be helpful for when you actually start to work on your homework in order to double check, not only the measurements of the objects that you're going to be creating, but also the distance between them. The distance command, okay, offers, and it differs in a little bit in that it actually acts as a ruler. So if I type in DI for distance, okay, I can actually specify one point and another, and it will tell me, okay, either down here or by my cursor, what that distance is. Now, what I had done is I did it arbitrarily because, again, it's really important, especially, also for this command too, in order to have accurate readings, accurate snaps. So if I want to know the distance from this endpoint to this endpoint, I'm going to make sure that my object snap is on, and then when I type in DI for distance, okay, and hit enter, I'm going to click on one end and it's snapping to the endpoint so that I know it's accurate, and then I'm going to snap to the other endpoint, and it'll tell me it's 5/7 and 5/16. So this is how you can start to accurately figure out, how the distances between your objects and how long they are if they're lines, or if you're trying to figure out the distance, the length of object segments, you can do that too as well. Now, another thing is if I do Control-1. Okay, what this does is it actually calls up what's called the properties palette. And right now I have nothing selected. However, if I click on an object, it'll tell me, essentially the same thing. Okay, but it'll tell me some more advanced options. If I deselect it, if I hit escape, okay, you'll see that nothing is selected again. Now, one thing is I can select multiple objects, and however many objects there are, that I selected here, they're going to be located, or noted within the parentheses next to lines. So up above, it's telling me that these are all lines, okay, and that there's 3 of them. Now, the one thing is, and especially when you do your homework, you'll find that a lot of times, especially when you're copying, that you might have lines that are stacked on top of each other. And what we do is we try to make sure that our drawings are as clean as possible. So one way of checking that, and a lot of times you don't know, because a lot of times you might have lines that are right on top of each other, and you don't exactly know that they are on top of each other. So for example, if I take a line and I copy it over, let's say 3 feet, and I do the same thing accidentally, and I don't realize it, you would never know. Okay? Here, what I can do though is, as long as I have my properties up, and again, you can type in properties, you can type in PROP for prop, which is the alias for properties. You can also do Control+1, which is what I did in order to get the properties. And so if I select this line, you'll see that it's a singular line. It doesn't have anything in parentheses after it, so I know that there's just one. If I select these guys, okay, there's actually 2. And I want to make sure that I have 1, because one of the goals is that when we start to work professionally, we have to keep our drawings as clean as possible. And one of the things that our drawings can get messy with is lines and objects on top of each other, which we might not be aware of. But, it's that level of messiness that we try to avoid when we draft. So I can actually take one of those, click on a singular line, I can hit E for erase, and now when I select it, you'll see that it's a singular one. So it's, these are tools to help you to double check your homework when you do it for this week. Another thing is the options. Okay, and this, if you type in options, is where you can start It's going to pop up because it's the first time I've had it open. But this is where you can actually start to kind of, play with how, AutoCAD looks, some of the drafting preferences. So if you find that you don't like the way, let's say, how big the grip is or how big your crosshairs are, you can actually go into, some settings. Okay, and you can change, the aperture size, the marker size. You can change how big your, the grips are, how big the, how far the crosshairs go. So you can change a lot of it here. You might want to play around with it, might not. Maybe you just settle for it for a little bit, and if you find that you do have your preferences, okay, you can start to come, here and, maybe change some things. But one thing that we want to be aware of is that when we do an open and save, okay, what we can set, so a lot of times what happens is that you might not, for example, if you might be working in a firm and you might send something off to a consultant and they might not have the most recent version of AutoCAD. Now, the way with 2015, it actually saves it to a 2013, but a lot of people don't even have that. So what you can do is you can actually set AutoCAD up so that every time you save the file, it actually what's called down saves it. And by doing that, you set it at an earlier release. So let's say 2007, that seems to be pretty ubiquitous. Nobody really has anything younger than, or older than 2007. So that if you hit OK, every time it saves the file, it'll save it as a 2007. Now, it doesn't mean anything in terms of what the file looks like. It just allows somebody who has an earlier version of AutoCAD to access it. Otherwise, when we have our file and we want to save it, if we go to the application menu, or you can type in save as a command, and you can save your file where you would like to. So I might save it where I can find it, and then just note that DWG is always an AutoCAD file, so that's very specific to AutoCAD. So then, what you would do is you would save the homework as 15 underscore first name underscore last name. You don't have to do .dwg because it's already there, and then you can save it. Okay. And that's essentially it. There are, ways that you can get help with AutoCAD. I recommend, the book by George Umura. I find that Googling, also helps a lot. The help in AutoCAD is a bit specific, and I find it not to be the most helpful because you have to know very specific terms, for what you're looking for. So if you have any issues, I would say, get the recommended book, or, get, or Google it, and you should be able to find the answers to your questions pretty quickly.